But you know what I decided? Like, this is my life. This is my life. This is the life that I have. And so I get to choose whether I'm going to resent it and be mad that it wasn't the life that I drew on a piece of paper. Welcome back to the Happiness and Progress podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Craig. I'm an Emmy Award-winning journalist, a mom, a wife, and you know what I like to say, just a person looking for more joy in the everyday. You guys, I have not done an episode like this, just one-on-one, me and you, in a while. And that is because I've been working on a really large project. I'm hoping that I can reveal it to you very soon. I want to get a little bit further in it. And I thought it would be good to kind of take this space that I use for this podcast episode every week and devote it to that project. But then I thought, I'm missing this. So we're coming back and we're going to make it all happen. Okay. Yes, we are. And by we, I mean it's going to be fine. But I am so excited to be here with you today. I'm so excited that you're listening. So I want to talk about something that's been on my mind. It is how to deal with the things in our lives that we cannot change, that we do not have control over. So I see a lot on social media. It comes across my feed and it'll be like an inspirational quote with the message, if you don't like your life, go change it. If you're not happy with something in your life, why aren't you changing it? If you don't like how your day goes, then change it. Duh. It drives me a little bit nuts because not everything is just like I'm going to go change it kind of situation, right? It's just not, because we are not in control of all the things that happen in our lives, right? Okay, so let's talk about what we are in control of versus what we're not in control of. Okay, so some things are really, really hard, but we do have control over them, like who we're married to. We do have control over who we're married to. It's just that change is a really, really difficult one to make. And so you still have that control there, though. Things get a little bit more difficult depending on if there's any abuse happening. And I want to make sure that I recognize that. But generally speaking, you have control of who you're married to. And if you do need help being unmarried, getting a divorce or getting out of a dangerous situation, look for women's shelters in your area or family or friends who can support you. But really, again, like I was saying, generally speaking, you do have control over who you're married to. It's a hard decision. It's a hard choice and it's a hard road to walk down. But at the end of the day, that decision is yours. Another thing you have a choice in, which is another hard one, is your job. You have a decision, a choice, some control about whether you keep your job or not. And sometimes it can feel like you don't have that control because you need that money, because that money pays for your mortgage, that money pays for your car, that money pays for whatever it pays for. And it can feel like you don't have any control anymore and that you're, chained to the job and you have to do it because you need the money. But again, when you look at the grand scheme of things, you do have control of whether you start looking for other jobs. You do have control over whether you start applying for jobs. Some things you don't have control of. You don't have control of whether a manager hires you for that other job you look for. You don't have control over, maybe you're in a marriage that you love, you think it's just going fine, and the other person in that marriage comes to you one day and says they're not happy and they want to leave. You don't have control over that. You don't have control over someone in your family's medical diagnosis or your diagnosis. You don't have control over a behavioral issue with one of your children. You don't have control over those kinds of things, whether you lose someone that you love. There's so much in our lives that we don't have control of. And so that's why I kind of wanted to talk about this and just sit in this and think about it and come out with some ideas on, okay, how am I going to deal with these days when I feel like I just want to change my life, but I can't change my life because the elements that I want to change are not changeable. I want you to feel okay in those moments. So let's do that. Okay. I deal with this sometimes where I can get myself in an unchangeable situation we have in our family. And this situation impacts everyone in the family. This diagnosis impacts everyone in the family. It impacts schooling, it impacts my work day, it impacts everything. And it can be disruptive and frustrating. And like I can feel really defeated a lot of the time because of this issue that we deal with. And sometimes with my fun little human brain, I can get really, really frustrated and woe is me kind of thing. And I want to share this because I think it's good for us to say, hey, my brain does this. It's okay. But I spiral and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just hate my life. Why do I have to do this again? Why is this happening? This isn't what I thought it was going to be. And this is it makes me so angry and I can't do it. And I'm like failing. And our brains can do this. They can spiral. We really have to make the conscious decision that we're not going to let the spiral occur. So for me, I think the first thing is no matter what your response is to the situation in your life, let it be. Okay. Let it be. Let's not shame it. It is a response. When I was first kind of thinking about what I wanted to talk to you, I said, I have this overreaction to what's happening. But then I realized, is it an overreaction or is it just simply my reaction? So let's give ourselves some grace for whatever our response to our life is. So if there's something hard that's happening in your life, something that is unchangeable, and your response is, I hate this. This is the worst. I can't believe it. How did this happen to me? God, why? Let's just give yourself a moment to not shame yourself and say, oh, but I heard this guy, or, how many people have I interviewed on my podcast? How many people on my podcast have never like looked up at the heavens and yelled, why? Let's just give ourselves a moment and say like, hey, we're human. So we're going to grant some grace for whatever the situation is in our lives. Right. Okay. So a little bit of grace if you like find yourself angry and bawling that you went through a divorce and this is your life and you didn't plan this. Right. So that's okay. That response is okay. Right. Totally acceptable. Okay. Second of all, let's recognize what we're going through. Let's recognize what is really sucky. Let's recognize how it impacts our life. Let's recognize the lost dreams and the lost hopes and whatever it is, like what we're talking about, it is so much loss, whether it's a diagnosis, whether it's losing someone, whether it's the loss of a partner, of a marriage, all of these things. Let's just recognize that this isn't what we planned. Let's recognize that this is rough. Let's recognize that this is more growing than we wanted to do. So I want to give you a moment for that. Okay. This is kind of like the grace, but I'm just going to let you have a moment recognizing that what you're going through is rough. What you're going through is tough. When something in your life is out of your control and you can't scoop in and change it and save it and put it back on your roadmap that you had planned. But let's also, once we've recognized it, ask ourselves, okay, what else is true? So yeah, I didn't plan to, as a parent, be dealing with some of the behavioral issues that I deal with a child, my child's age. But here I am, and I'm in it, and I'm dealing with it, and it's hard. But you know what? What else is true? What else is true is that even though this isn't what I had planned, I love being his mom. Okay. So even though I can be embarrassed, and even though I can be frustrated and angry, and even though it feels like the worst, what else is true is there are also like really great moments too. There are also moments where I'm like, this is the best. This is the best. This really incredible, unique, amazing kid that I have, he's the best. And I love him. So what these things, they can exist simultaneously. And sometimes that package of a hardship is the thing that's great. Of course that's not always that's not always, especially in the things that we're talking about. But for my instance, it works for me. But I think that when we're going through something really difficult and we feel like our life is the worst, and we can say, this is the worst, but what else is true? What else is true is that I've loved. What else is true is that I brought these kids into the world. Where else is true is that I have a community rallying behind me. What else is true is I didn't realize that everyone could step up for me in a way that I was stepping up for them my whole life. What else is true is what? No matter what it is that's hard in your life, I want you, as you recognize, yeah, it's the worst. It's hard. What else is true? What else is true? And you know what is interesting? Sometimes that's going to be really difficult, and it's all going to depend on your headspace. Um, and so I've been kind of living in not the best headspace. It's been a couple weeks that have been rough. But you know what I decided? Like, this is my life. This is my life. This is the life that I have. And so I get to choose whether I'm going to resent it and be mad that it wasn't the life that I drew on a piece of paper, with Masho with my friends. I guess you didn't really put diagnoses on Masho, did you? Kids of the 90s, there you go. The reality is, like, this is my life, and if I want to love my life, I can't change the situation that's in it. This happens to be a situation that's not changeable. But you know what I can change? I can change my mindset. So if you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, I'm recognizing that this is really hard, but there's literally nothing else that's true, Danielle, then maybe maybe the beginning of it is a mindset shift. There's so many things that we're talking about that are never going to be great. We've been talking about a lot of really difficult things that are out of our control. And so I can't give all of the examples about what else would be true for you. Because some of the things are really, really hard. And I know that. And again, I see you, and I understand that it's hard to change a mindset about something that is this terrible. But I do believe that the mindset part of it, the mindset piece, will actually give you some peace, and help you get what you can out of this life. It's rough. It's rough all around, and sometimes it's really hard to find the what else is true. What else is true about my life? Um, and then finally, you know, sometimes when you're in this and you're doing that spiral I talked about in the beginning, you're not ready to find solutions. You don't want to find solutions. You don't want to, whatever it is, whatever the thing about your life that's difficult. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, I've got nothing, and leave me alone. Right. So I just wanted to put in there as the very last thing, find solutions when you're ready. When you're ready. Um, it can be really, really overwhelming to have to be calling around to this and that, reading all the books and doing your own research and be practically becoming, some kind of specialist, um, when you're trying to change an unchangeable part of your life. And so I think also I would say there, especially with my situation, um, I would say maybe letting go of the outcomes, letting go of a change needs to occur. And really, it's like a change within our hearts that we need to kind of move into acceptance. Why? Because acceptance is really difficult, and I'd honestly rather prefer to continue being a control freak my whole life. So maybe I would say, yeah, this is really hard, but also I'm learning how to not be a control freak. um, okay. So to summarize, I want to make sure we all know we're on the same page, that the first and foremost, we are offering ourselves grace. We are giving ourselves a moment to say, yeah, this is the worst. And then when we're ready, we're going to ask ourselves, we're going to say, look, my life's not changing with this specific situation. So I'm going to do a mindset shift. And then we say, what else? What else is true here? And then finally, when we're ready, we can start looking for solutions. But again, remembering that those solutions are not necessarily to change the unchangeable, but to maybe it's acceptance. I guess it depends. Maybe it's acceptance. Maybe it's growth. Maybe the growth won't look exactly how we want it to look, but we're going to still go for the growth. And simultaneously, while you are trying to find little gems of this experience and what you love about your life, um keep up the fight. Why not? I am fighting, we're all fighting. When things feel hard and our life feels like the worst, we're still fighting, and we're still moving forward. And so this episode is not to say, give up the fight, it's over. It's to say, hey, let's recognize that this is really hard. And then when we're ready to put our mindset in a spot that's going to make us feel a little better, maybe start looking for those gems. Start looking for the thing that is like, yeah, this is good. This is the good part about life. This is just the mindset piece. This is just the mindset piece to help you feel a little bit, a little bit better, a little bit like, you know what? I'm just glad I'm alive. Like, I'm just glad this is a life I get to live, even when it's not going as planned. All right, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up at that. Hey, I have a cool episode coming up on Tuesday. We are talking about EMDR, and it is wild how this works, especially when someone is dealing with a trauma. EMDR comes in and does some really amazing stuff in the brain. So you're going to learn all about that on Tuesday. I can't wait. I'll see you then. Thanks for being here.